I should have known Christmas was about to explode the moment Grandpa Walter called all of us home. He never asked, he commanded. And this time, his voice carried a strange, shaky weight that made my stomach twist. When I walked into his old Montana cabin, everyone was already bickering. Dad complaining about the roads, Aunt Linda scrolling on her phone, Uncle Bruce asking where the real gifts were. I barely had time to take off my coat before Grandpa handed each of us a white envelope, silent, deliberate, like he was dealing cards in a game none of us understood. Inside mine was a check for $5 million. Crisp, heavy, perfectly official. Everyone burst out laughing. Fake, Dad barked. Cute prank, Grandpa, Aunt Linda snorted. But Grandpa didn't look at them. He looked straight at me, and that haunting look told me one thing. This was no joke. The room fell into a weird, uncomfortable silence after the laughter died down. Everyone kept waving their checks like cheap paper props, everyone except me. I held mine carefully, pressing the edges between my fingers as if it might crumble. Dad leaned back in his chair, smirking. $5 million, Hannah. Come on. Even you can't be naive enough to fall for that. I swallowed hard. Dad, what if he's serious? Aunt Linda snorted so loud it echoed off the wooden walls. Sweetheart, your grandpa once tried to pay a plumber with a bag of quarters. The man is old. He's confused. But Grandpa Walter didn't look confused. He just sat there, hands folded over his cane, eyes fixed on each of us like he was memorizing our reactions. Uncle Bruce held his check to the light. Looks legit. But so do the ones in those prank YouTube videos. Dude, this is hilarious. Stop it, I snapped before I realized I'd said it out loud. Every head turned toward me. Grandpa's eyes softened. A small, tired smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, like he'd been waiting for someone to defend him. Dad rolled his eyes. Oh, here we go. Hannah playing hero? Hannah's the only one with a working brain, Grandpa finally said, voice trembling but sharp. At least she still knows what respect looks like. That shut everyone up. He pushed himself up from his chair, slow, shaky, but determined. You all think I'm losing my mind. Maybe that tells me more about you than it does about me. A cold wave rolled through the room. Dad opened his mouth, but Grandpa lifted a hand. Save it, Raymond. Then he turned to me. Hannah, walk with me. We stepped out onto the frozen porch, breath turning to white smoke in the air. The snow reflected the soft glow from inside, making the world look surreal. Grandpa leaned on the railing, staring into the dark pines. They've stopped seeing me, he whispered. Stopped listening. Stopped caring. I didn't know what to say. Grandpa, why give them checks at all? He looked at me, eyes sharp, full of something that felt like both sorrow and fire. To see who still has a heart. He touched the pocket of my coat where I'd kept the check. Hold on to that, Hannah. Do not under any circumstances lose it. The wind cut through my jacket, but a chill far deeper ran down my spine. Because at that moment I realized something huge was coming. And my entire family was walking straight into a storm they didn't see yet. That night, the cabin felt heavier than usual. Maybe it was the storm building outside, or maybe it was the strange tension Grandpa had stirred in all of us. After dinner, everyone retreated to their corners. Dad to the couch with a beer, Aunt Linda scrolling TikTok, Uncle Bruce arguing with his girlfriend on speakerphone. I stayed in the kitchen, washing dishes with Grandpa. He dried each plate slowly, his wrinkled hands trembling just enough to break my heart. Hannah, he said quietly, you saw their faces. I nodded. They think you're joking. They think I'm useless. He set a plate down. But you didn't laugh. I tried to smile. Maybe because I've always known you're unpredictable. He chuckled, but it faded quickly. Hannah, promise me something. Okay, tomorrow, when things start happening, don't back down. I froze. What's going to happen? But instead of answering, he reached for a little wooden box on the counter. He opened it, revealing an old pocket watch with scratches all around the edges. This was your great-grandfather's, he said. It's yours now. Grandpa, why give this to me? He looked at me with that same haunting seriousness I saw earlier. Because by tomorrow, you're going to need something that reminds you who you are. Before I could ask more, the front door slammed. Dad stomped into the kitchen, face flushed red. Walter, what the hell were you thinking tonight? You made us all look ridiculous. Grandpa didn't even blink. Then maybe you should have acted less ridiculous. Dad's jaw tightened. You know what I mean. These stupid checks. They're only stupid because you chose them to be. Grandpa snapped back. The room went dead silent. I stepped between them. Dad, stop. Please. Dad pointed at me. Don't defend this insanity, Hannah. You think he has 5 million just lying around? Use your head. Maybe he does. I shot back. He laughed bitterly. You're as naive as your mother. That stung more than it should have. Grandpa's voice turned cold. Raymond, say another word, and you can sleep in your car. Dad muttered something under his breath and walked away, slamming the door behind him. Grandpa sank into a chair, exhausted. His breathing was shallow, his shoulders shaking slightly. For the first time, he looked old, frighteningly old. I knelt beside him. Grandpa, are you okay? He cupped my cheek with his trembling hand. I'm fine, sweetheart. But you need to remember something. Love shows itself in the smallest moments. And so does greed. I swallowed hard. Grandpa, what are you planning? He smiled faintly. Not planning, Hannah. Revealing. Revealing what? The truth about this family. Outside, thunder rumbled softly in the distance. Inside, the cabin lights flickered as if the house itself sensed something coming. Grandpa stood slowly and whispered, Get some rest, Hannah. Tomorrow, everything changes. And just like that, he shuffled off to bed, leaving me alone with a fear I couldn't explain, and a check in my pocket that suddenly felt like a ticking bomb. I barely slept that night. Grandpa's warning kept replaying in my head, every word tightening like a knot in my chest. By sunrise, the cabin was silent, too silent. Everyone else was still asleep or pretending to be. I slipped my coat on, tucked the check carefully into my pocket, and stepped outside into the biting Montana cold. The sky was pale pink, the kind that always made Grandpa say, "Storm's coming." I didn't know if he meant the weather or my family. The drive to the bank felt unreal. My hands trembled on the steering wheel the whole way. The check felt heavier than paper, more like a secret. When I finally walked into the Willow Ridge Community Bank, my boots left little puddles of melted snow on the polished floor. A young teller wearing braces smiled at me. Hi, how can I help you today? I slid the envelope toward her. I'd like to deposit this. I'd like to deposit this. She opened it. Her smile vanished. She blinked. Once, twice. Then her face drained of color. This is... She swallowed hard. One moment, please. I need my manager. My stomach dropped. Within seconds, a man in a gray suit, mid-50s, stiff posture appeared. I'm Mr. Harris, the branch manager. May I take a look? He examined the check so carefully you'd think it was radioactive. His eyebrows scrunched. He held it up to the light, checked the watermark, the signature, the routing number, everything. Then he looked up at me. Expression completely different from the polite bank facade people always wear. Miss, could you step into my office? My heart nearly exploded out of my chest. What's wrong? Is it fake? He didn't answer. Inside his office, he closed the blinds, sat across from me, and lowered his voice. This check is real. I stared at him. I'm sorry, what? Authentic. Verified. The account at First Montana Trust Bank holds the full $5 million. Miss. He leaned forward. This is not a joke. I felt the world tilt sideways. He continued. We will place a temporary hold due to the amount, but once cleared, the funds will appear in your account within a few days. My throat went dry. Grandpa wasn't joking. Mr. Harris softened his tone. Whoever wrote this wants you to have it. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the chair. Can I get a receipt? Absolutely. He printed it, slid it toward me like it was sacred. I stared at the numbers. $5 million. Pending deposit. My eyes filled with tears I didn't even feel coming. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, Dad. Then Aunt Linda. Then Uncle Bruce. Call after call. Text after text. How did you get to the bank this early? What did you do? Did you seriously try to cash that? I backed away from the buzzing phone as if it were a live grenade. Mr. Harris looked concerned. Is everything all right? No, it wasn't. Because deep in my gut, I realized the truth. The second my family found out this check was real, they would come for me. All of them. And Grandpa knew it. By the time I stepped out of the bank, the sky had gone from pale pink to a sharp, metallic gray. The wind sliced across my face, But it wasn't the cold that made me shiver, it was the 27 missed calls lighting up my screen. The first one came in before I even reached the car. Dad. Calling. I hesitated, then swiped to answer. Dad didn't even say hello. Tell me you didn't actually deposit that stupid check. My breath fogged the air. Dad, it's real. Silence. A long, deadly silence. Then, what? It's real, I repeated. The bank verified it. They said Grandpa. I don't care what they said. Dad yelled. Do you have any idea how insane you look? Give me the receipt. I want a picture. Now. I pulled the phone away from my ear. Why? So you can post it in the family group chat to brag or to start a war? Hannah, don't get smart with me, he snapped. Just send it. No. The line went dead. I hadn't even taken 2 steps before it buzzed again. Aunt Linda. Hannah, sweetie, she said, her voice sugar-coated poison. Listen, honey, your grandpa wasn't thinking straight. That money should be divided fairly. You understand, right? I haven't even received the funds yet. But you will, she hissed. And when you do, we expect you to handle it like an adult. Meaning, you don't keep it for yourself. I clenched my jaw. Meaning, I give it to all of you? Obviously. I hung up. Then Uncle Bruce called. Then cousins. Then relatives I didn't even speak to. Like vultures smelling blood. By the time I reached the cabin, my phone felt like it was burning. I pushed through the door. Everyone was awake, waiting like a courtroom with no judge, only executioners. Dad stood in the center of the living room, arms folded. Where were you? No greeting. No concern. Just accusation. At the bank, I said. Did you cash it? Aunt Linda demanded. I pulled the folded receipt from my coat pocket. Their eyes snapped to it like magnets. Dad lunged forward. Give me that. I stepped back. No. Hannah! He barked, voice cracking. That money belongs to this family. Funny, I said. None of you thought it belonged to the family last night when you were laughing in Grandpa's face. The room erupted. Aunt Linda. Don't twist this. Uncle Bruce. You manipulated him. Dad, he's old, Hannah. You took advantage. Cousin Megan. You owe us. It was like being trapped inside a hurricane made of teeth. I shouted over them. You all threw your checks away. Dad slammed his fist on the table. Because they were obviously fake. Then why am I suddenly the villain now that it's real? I demanded. Nobody answered. Then Grandpa's door creaked open. He stepped out slowly, gripping his cane, eyes burning with a fire I had never seen before. That's enough. The room froze. Grandpa pointed at them one by one. All of you laughed. All of you mocked me. All of you threw away what you didn't deserve. Dad opened his mouth, but Grandpa cut him off with a roar that filled the cabin. But she didn't. He turned to me. Hannah kept hers. Hannah had faith. Hannah still sees me. My throat tightened. Grandpa took a deep breath, voice trembling but fierce. And now the truth begins. Everyone exchanged confused glances. Dad frowned. What truth? Grandpa leaned heavily on his cane. The truth, he said, about who this family really is. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't the end of the storm. It was only the first crack of thunder. Grandpa didn't come down for breakfast the next morning. At first, I thought he was just tired from last night's chaos, my family screaming, accusing, tearing into each other like wolves. But the quiet, it felt wrong. Too still. Too hollow. I walked to his room and knocked softly. Grandpa? It's me. No answer. I pushed the door open. He was lying there peacefully, hands folded over his chest, eyes closed as if he'd just drifted into sleep. But the moment I touched his hand, the truth punched the air from my lungs, cold. Still. Gone. I dropped to my knees. Grandpa. No, please, Grandpa. Wake up, please. My voice broke, shattering in the quiet room. Hot tears spilled down my cheeks as I shook him gently, desperately, stupidly hoping he'd stir. He didn't. I don't remember calling 911. I don't remember the paramedics' voices. I only remember Dad standing in the doorway, arms crossed, saying, So, what happens to the money now? I spun around. He's dead, Dad. He didn't flinch. And he still had assets. We need to know what— Shut up, I screamed. Shut up, shut up, shut up. Shut up! The paramedics had to pull me away. 3 days later, snow smothered the town in white silence as Grandpa's coffin was lowered into the ground. I sobbed so hard I could barely breathe. My family didn't shed a single tear. Aunt Linda whispered to Dad, not bothering to hide it. "Do you think she already moved the money to a hidden account?" Dad muttered back. "She's always been manipulative. She probably twisted him around her finger." Uncle Bruce scoffed. Old man was losing it. "She took advantage." I turned around, voice trembling with rage. "Say it again." Bruce raised his hands mockingly. "Oh, look. The princess is angry." I lunged at him. Someone grabbed my arms, because in that moment I hated them. Every single one of them. After the burial, Grandpa's attorney, Mr. Cole Harrington, summoned us to a small meeting room in the funeral home. "Thank you for coming," he said gently. Walter prepared a formal statement and final instructions. Dad leaned forward, eager like a gambler waiting for lottery numbers. Mr. Harrington opened a leather folder. Walter transferred exactly $5 million into a private trust before Christmas. He then issued a check for the full amount to each member of this family. Everyone stiffened, he continued. But there was only one active account. Only the first check deposited would receive the funds. All others would bounce. Aunt Linda gasped. "He tricked us?" Mr. Harrington looked up. "He tested you." "Tested what?" Dad barked. The attorney's voice turned cold. "Your character." Then he turned to me. "Hannah, records show that you were the first and only person who attempted to deposit the check." "No way!" Dad exploded. "She manipulated him," Aunt Linda shrieked. "She planned this," Uncle Bruce yelled. Mr. Harrington raised a hand. Walter anticipated this reaction. He left something specifically for Hannah. He slid a sealed envelope across the table toward me. The front read, "For Hannah. Only her." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. I unfolded it slowly, and Grandpa's voice filled the room. "My dearest Hannah, if you're reading this, then I have already left this world to join your grandmother. Don't cry for me, sweetheart. I lived proudly, and I left on my own terms. The money was never meant to be shared. It was meant to reveal the truth. I knew they would laugh. I knew they would mock me. I knew they would throw those checks away without a second thought. But you held on to yours. You saw me. You respected me. You believed in me the way no one else did. That's why the $5 million belongs to you, and only you. Do not give them a single dime. Not even one. Live for yourself now, Hannah. They've taken enough from you, and remember this. Greed exposes people faster than truth ever could. With all my love, Grandpa Walter." My chest collapsed. Tears blurred the words. When I looked up, the entire room was staring at me with pure hatred. Dad slammed his fist on the table. "This isn't over." Mr. Harrington spoke sharply. "It is over, legally and permanently." But the way my family glared at me, I knew. This was just the beginning of a new war. I thought burying Grandpa would be the worst day of my life. I was wrong, because the next morning, my phone exploded with notifications, hundreds of them. Mentions, tags, posts, comments, and every single one had my name in it. Dad had posted a long Facebook status. My daughter manipulated my elderly father into signing over his entire savings. She took advantage of a confused old man. Please pray for us as we seek justice. Aunt Linda shared it within minutes. She stole from the whole family. Uncle Bruce added, "We won't let greed destroy us. Court will decide." They posted pictures of Grandpa, pictures of him looking tired, frail, caught in unflattering angles, and wrote captions like, "He wasn't mentally well. She exploited him." My heart sank into my stomach. People I barely knew were commenting, "How could you? Evil. Give the money back, thief." If the money back, thief. Shameful. I slammed my laptop shut, trembling. That's when a loud knock shook my door. Bam, bam, bam. "Open up!" Dad's voice roared from outside. I froze. "Hannah, we know you're in there," Aunt Linda screeched. I opened the door just an inch. Dad shoved it wider. "Give us the trust documents, now." "What documents?" I backed away. "The ones Grandpa gave you," Aunt Linda demanded. "I only have the letter." Uncle Bruce laughed sharply. "Oh, how convenient. She only has the letter." Dad's eyes were wild. "We've contacted a lawyer. You will not get away with this." "A lawyer?" I whispered. "You're suing me?" Dad stepped forward, voice cold like steel. We are suing you for full redistribution of the estate. Fraud, elder abuse, manipulation, coercion. My throat tightened. I didn't manipulate anyone. He loved me. Enough, Dad barked. You stole $5 million. I felt something inside me crack. You all threw your checks away. That doesn't matter, Aunt Linda hissed. It was symbolic. It was a test, I snapped. And all of you failed. Dad's face twisted with rage. Oh, we'll see who fails in court. They stormed off. I sank onto the floor, shaking so hard I could barely breathe. 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived. Gold seal, heavy paper, summons to court. My name in bold. My family listed as plaintiffs. Charges: fraudulent misappropriation of inheritance, exploitation of a vulnerable elder, coercion, intentional emotional harm, demand for redistribution of assets. I felt the world tilt. Dad had actually signed his name at the bottom. So did Aunt Linda, Uncle Bruce, my cousins. My entire bloodline was suing me. The next few weeks were a nightmare. At the grocery store, people whispered. At work, co-workers avoided me. A parent actually approached my desk and said, "Are you the girl who stole money from her dying grandfather?" I went home that day and sobbed on the kitchen floor until my throat burned. That was the moment I realized I couldn't fight this alone. I grabbed my phone and dialed the one person Grandpa always trusted, Attorney Cole Harrington, the man who handled the will. He picked up on the second ring. Hannah? My voice cracked. They're suing me. I know, he said quietly. They contacted my office. I swallowed hard. What do I do? He exhaled slowly. You do what your grandfather knew you would do. What's that? Fight. He paused. And this time, Hannah, I'm fighting with you. We met the next morning in his office overlooking downtown. He had already stacked a pile of documents on the table. Your grandfather left more than money, Cole said. He left evidence. He opened a folder. Inside were Grandpa's medical evaluations stating full cognitive clarity, video recordings from inside the cabin, Grandpa's voice messages, signed trust documents, a notarized statement. My mental state is sound. My decisions are intentional, I gasped. He planned this. Cole nodded. He knew exactly what he was revealing. My hands shook as he placed a final document in front of me, a short video. Grandpa, sitting in his armchair, speaking to the camera. If they turn on her, protect her. She is the only one left who remembers what family means. Tears streamed down my cheeks. Cole's voice was steady. Hannah, your grandfather armed you with the truth. And your family? He leaned back, eyes sharp. They just armed themselves with lies. He closed the folder with a soft, final thud. Time to take them down. The courthouse felt colder than the Montana winter outside. I stood there, gripping the file Cole gave me, my palms damp with sweat. My entire family, blood relatives who once claimed to love me, sat together on the opposite side of the room, like a united front of hatred. Dad wouldn't even look at me. Aunt Linda glared with a smirk of triumph. Uncle Bruce cracked his knuckles, whispering something to his lawyer. I wasn't Hannah the granddaughter anymore. I was the enemy. Cole leaned toward me. You're going to be okay, he whispered. I wasn't sure I believed him. The judge entered. Everyone rose, and then the nightmare began. Dad's attorney, a slick man with greased-back hair, stood up. Your Honor, he announced, this is a case of elder exploitation. A young woman manipulating her mentally fragile grandfather into gifting her his entire estate. The rest of the family was left with nothing. Dad nodded dramatically, even dabbing his eyes with a tissue. Fake tears. I almost gagged. The lawyer continued. Hannah Preston isolated Walter, influenced him, and coerced him into signing away $5 million. We demand the court invalidate the check and redistribute the estate fairly. He looked at me like I was trash. When confronted, the defendant refused to share any portion of the inheritance, proving malicious intent. Dad suddenly shouted, She stole from us! Order! The judge barked. Then Aunt Linda took the stand. She tricked him, she sobbed dramatically. He wasn't well. He forgot birthdays, forgot appointments. He even thought it was Thanksgiving in July. I clenched my fists. That never happened. She was making it up. Uncle Bruce followed. Hannah always manipulated him. He trusted her too much. She took advantage. Cousin Megan. She bragged about being closer to Grandpa. She planned this. Every lie felt like a slap. By the time they were done, I wasn't a granddaughter anymore, I was a monster. When it was our turn, Cole rose slowly, calmly, like a wolf ready to rip throats. Your Honor, he began. The plaintiffs have offered nothing except accusations, exaggerations, and emotional theatrics. We will now present facts. He handed the judge a folder. Exhibit A. Medical evaluations confirming that Walter Preston was fully lucid, cognitively stable, and legally competent. Aunt Linda's face dropped. Exhibit B. A notarized statement from Walter, written before Christmas, verifying his mental clarity and intention to distribute his assets through one active account. Dad stiffened. Exhibit C. Home security footage. Cole played a clip on the screen. There they were, my family mocking Grandpa, ripping their checks, laughing in his face. The room fell silent. Another clip. Grandpa speaking privately in the kitchen. He said clearly, "They don't see me anymore, but Hannah still does. She's the only one left with a heart." My eyes filled with tears. Gasps filled the courtroom. Dad's jaw clenched. Aunt Linda whispered, "Oh my God." Cole wasn't done. Exhibit D. A video recorded by Walter himself. He pressed play. Grandpa appeared on screen, frail but fierce. "If you are watching this, it means they have turned against Hannah. I was not manipulated. I made a deliberate choice. The $5 million belongs to her, no one else." My breath caught. Even the judge looked shaken. Cole turned to the plaintiffs. Any questions? They had none. The courtroom held its breath as the judge read her ruling. This court finds no evidence of manipulation or coercion. The decedent was fully competent. The check deposited by the defendant is valid and binding. Dad started shaking his head violently. Furthermore, the judge continued, the plaintiff's claims are baseless, defamatory, and made in bad faith. Aunt Linda gasped. The complaint is dismissed with prejudice. The defendant, Hannah Preston, is confirmed as the sole legal recipient of the $5 million. A loud smack of the gavel echoed. Case closed. Dad jumped to his feet. No, you don't get to do this." "Sit down," the judge warned. "You manipulated him," he screamed at me. "You ruined this family." I stood slowly, voice trembling but clear. "No, Dad. You ruined it when money mattered more than love." Aunt Linda lunged forward before Bruce held her back. "You selfish little." Cole stepped in front of me. The bailiff approached, ready to intervene. My family, my own flesh and blood, looked at me like I was something they wanted to destroy. And that was the exact moment I realized, even if I won the case, I had just lost my entire family forever. When the courtroom doors closed behind me, the cold Montana wind hit my face like a warning and a promise. I walked down the courthouse steps slowly, each step echoing the truth. I had won, but I had no family left to share it with. I stood outside for a long moment, watching people hurry past strangers who knew nothing about the storm that had just ripped my life apart. Cole rested a hand on my shoulder. "You did everything right, Hannah," he said. My voice cracked. "Then why does it still hurt so damn much?" He sighed softly. "Because losing the illusion of family still feels like losing the real thing." Then he squeezed my shoulder. "But you'll build something better." That night, I drove back alone to Grandpa's cabin. The snow fell thick and silent, covering every memory, every wound, every echo of my relative's rage. Inside, the house felt hollow without him, but also peaceful. No yelling, no greed. Just the crackle of the fireplace and the soft creak of the old armchair he loved. I sank into it and pulled out his letter again, reading it for the 100th time. "Live for yourself now, Hannah. They've taken enough from you." Something in me loosened, something that had been tight for years. The next morning, I made the decision I knew Grandpa would approve of. I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases, closed the cabin door one last time, and didn't tell a single soul where I was going. 2 weeks later, I moved to a quiet mountain town in Colorado Snow Ridge, population barely 3,000, a town that smelled like pine trees and wood smoke, a place where no one knew my name or my past or the $5 million sitting quietly in my bank account. I bought a small cedar cabin on the edge of town. Nothing extravagant, Grandpa would have hated extravagance. Just a cozy place with a wood-burning stove, a big porch, and a view of the mountains that made my chest ache in the best way. I found a job at the local bookstore, something simple, something healing. People there didn't care about my history. They cared about stories, about poetry, about which author wrote the best winter novels. They called me the quiet girl who knows every book in the shop. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Every morning, I'd wake up early, brew strong coffee, step outside, and breathe in the crisp mountain air. The peace was so intense, it almost felt foreign. I planted a small garden. I took long walks in the forest trails. I learned how to bake bread from Martha, the sweet old lady who lived next door. She'd bring me jars of honey and say, "A girl like you deserves a sweet life." I never told her what I'd been through. She didn't need to know. And I didn't need to relive it. The best part? No one asked me for anything. No one demanded a share. No one tried to twist love into obligation. For the first time in my life, I was truly free. One evening, as the sun sank behind the mountains in a blaze of orange and pink, I sat on the porch with Grandpa's pocket watch in my hand. The metal was warm from my touch. The ticking was soft but steady, like a heartbeat. I closed my eyes. "Thank you, Grandpa," I whispered into the quiet air. "You didn't just leave me money. You left me my life." A soft breeze swept across the porch, warm, gentle, almost like a hand brushing my cheek. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe it was him. I didn't care. All I knew was this. I had walked through hell. I had lost everyone who once claimed to love me, but in the ashes of everything shattered, I found myself. And for the first time, that was enough.